Behavioral neuroscience is the branch of psychology that studies the relationships between behavior and the body, particularly the brain. To psychologists, behavior has to do with learning, thinking, and emotions. Behavioral neuroscience has become its interdisciplinary field to study because thinkers have struggled with questions about behavior for thousands of years. It wasn't always its separate discipline, but because of the many questions of behavior, it had to become one. We need thinkers to answer the many questions on behavior, like why does one person develop depression and another, under similar circumstances, becomes anxious, while another seems unaffected? In order to answer questions like this, we need people to study these questions. It wasn't until 1879 when Wundt opened the first psychology laboratory in Germany that people really started to take this field seriously. But it didn't just become its own discipline at this time. In order for it to become its own discipline, psychologists had to prove that a biological approach could answer some of these questions on behavior. They used the scientific method to study these questions about behavior in the brain. In doing so, they proved that the biological psychology should be its own science. One of the biggest questions or debates within the field of behavioral neuroscience is nature versus nurture, or biology versus environment. Nature versus nurture is the question of if your biological makeup or the genes has to do more with your behavior or the environment around you. If you believe in nature, that means you are a product of your two parents, and no matter what, your behavior is set in stone because of your genetic makeup. If you believe in nurture, then you believe it doesn't matter what your genetic makeup is. You're gonna behave like the ones around you, and that's what's going to impact your behavior. This question is unsolvable because there is just not enough factors that link environment to genes to say that one has more effect on the other. It is hard because no one has the same genetics, therefore they can't test different variables because they don't have the same base. But for most people, instead of it being one or the other that changes human behavior, they constantly are working together in many variations to create human behavior. An example of nature behavior is a child being born with autism. Obviously, this child didn't develop autism because of the environment. The child developed it because of its genetic makeup. An example of nurture behavior is how someone learns to talk. If you grow up with everyone around you speaking Spanish, then the language you are going to learn to speak is Spanish. It is not the genes that make you speak Spanish.